Hey guys, my name is Rebecca. Welcome to my channel, Homeschool On. Today is part 2 in a series I'm doing talking about Gather Round Homeschool, which is a brand new homeschool curriculum that has hit the market and that I made. So full disclosure, this is mine. Okay, so I want to make sure we're all aware of that. And actually, if you watched the previous video, you now know this is not mine, this is God's. And so I'm so excited. We're going to be talking in this video segment of the philosophy behind how it works, how that's progressed, and the kind of background of what this looks like, big picture, so that you can see that before we go into part 3. Part 3, I'm actually going to show you inside the first 3 units that we have so that you can see how these work and what all the different lessons look like. So that one is going to be coming up next, so make sure to click over to that if you want to see inside and don't want to hear this, but I think this will really help you understand the scope of Gather Round Homeschool and how it works. Okay, so basically, now that we understand the backstory of this and my point of drowning in the water and needing something personally for myself, Gather Round Homeschool is this idea of doing school with all of your kids together. That's like the groundwork of it. Can you do school with all your kids together? Yes, you can with Gather Round Homeschool. That's just the foundation. The next layer of what this is that it is a program that facilitates connections. So connections in multiple different ways. The first way it facilitates connections is that what I've found with my kids and with using all different types of curriculum, and this book for science and this book for socials and this book for math and this book for language arts, and then you have writing and you've got spelling and you've got, everything is so divided. It's so broken up. And so what I have found is that it actually just doesn't mean anything to them. Even looking back on my own education experience, history, I could have done well. I did not do well. Why? It didn't mean anything to me. These dates were meaningless to me. It was just some random thing I was supposed to memorize for the sake of a test. All right, facts and information. It didn't mean anything. If we want our kids to truly learn, not just memorize, learn, then we have to give them connections. They have to have personal meaning to this. And so the very first thing that you're going to start to see in this entire model of education is connections within their subjects. Because we're taking a unit study model, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, here is Asia, or here is space, or here is a topic that we're going to learn about. Our first one was North American birds. We have earth science, or the human body, or different continents that we're learning about, okay? So Africa, whatever. We're going to learn about this, but now inside our student notebooks when we're working on it, we're going to start to see how all our other subjects can connect based on this one topic. So we begin to bring in, for example, North American birds. They learned about migration of birds. So in that, let's tie that into what's the difference between migrate and immigrate. And let's talk about immigration. Just like a bird travels and goes to a different place, immigration means somebody travels and comes to a new place. We tie it in with absolutely everything we can in the most creative of ways. Another example in the birds one, it's just, I don't know why this is so fresh in my mind, but anyways, in the birds one of the things we did in the starling lesson was we tied it in. We're teaching about starlings. Now we're going to tie it into William Shakespeare, because the reason we have so many starlings in North America is because somebody who loved William Shakespeare, actually a group of people, we don't really know, those details are fuzzy, released birds that were in his plays in the United States, and they took over and became rampant and are everywhere now. So, hey, let's learn about William Shakespeare. So we tie it all in based on what they're learning. That is one facet of the connections that are in Gather Round Homeschool. The other facet of connections that you're going to see is this other problem I see in the homeschool realm, in all of us. We have a tendency to say, okay, we don't want to do school at home. It's homeschooling, right? You've heard that before. And we're trying not to emulate or just recreate school. Here's all our individual desks, which, by the way, I have. Here's all our individual desks, all our individual subjects. Here's your recess. Here's your schedule. Now do this, now do this, now do this. It's basically the same thing they're doing at school at home. Yeah, you're working with multiple different grades, but we're kind of taking that same model and bringing it home into our homeschools. Now, not everybody does that, but even if you don't do that, this brings in a different facet of connection in that because your kids are all working on similar things, let's say in their notebooks. So you read together in the teacher's guide, which we're going to get into what this actually looks like, and then you assign all your different kids their different notebooks. So everybody, you got your pre-reader working, you've got your early elementary, your upper elementary, your high schooler, everyone's got their notebooks, they're working. Let's say in Asia, they are learning about elephants. So the younger kids are learning about Asian elephants and how they use their trunks to pick up various things. Your older kids are going into elephants in captivity and how they're used in the tourism industry. Your middle high school kids are talking more about animals in captivity, what that looks like, how they're treated, and how they feel about that. So what happens? You have kids working all around a table, or you're all laying around the floor, or you're in an RV because they're tiny little books and you can do this anywhere, or you're at the doctor's office. Okay, you get the point. In the car. Okay, I'll stop. So you're working on this wherever you are. All your kids at all their various levels are working, and what happens is that you get this connection point amongst your family, because all your kids are learning about similar things. You have this kid saying, oh, I'm learning about this, or it's, oh, mom, guess what about this? Meanwhile, you have your older kid talking about this. It rabbit trails into a discussion, and all your family is learning based on what everyone else is learning, and you start to have this round table learning point. You see this happen in schools, and I think this is one area that we've actually missed out on homeschoolers, is that in a school setting, you have a group of kids where you can actually have these discussions where they begin to see other viewpoints, other ideas, what other people see from that, and have these discussions that are actually incredibly powerful. We see that in any capacity. Every time you have any sort of a round table, anything in the workplace, you begin to have other people all pouring into one common thought or idea. And we miss that in homeschooling because everyone's divided in their own books and their own subjects. So the other connection point with Gather Round Homeschool is that all your kids now get to have this roundtable discussion where they all add what they're learning at their various levels with their various insight, and they get to add that to the discussion. So there is rich discussion, there is rich connection as a family unit, and there is rich connection with your child's and their mind and understanding how all of these things work and connect together. So we're learning about an Asian elephant, we're looking up where they live, we're doing geography based on this, we're beginning to make connections. This Asian elephant means something to us because it's not just a paragraph we're reading about it, a book we're reading about it, an assignment we're doing on it. We are connecting it to all these other things that actually mean something to us. The other thing that makes Gather Round, so you have the foundation of all your kids together, you have the connection points that make it really, really unique, and next you have this idea that your kids are beginning to learn how to think for themselves. So rather than being, and I'm so passionate about this because I've seen this, it does not work. The philosophy of education, which is probably a little more traditional, where you read and then you write. You read and you do an assignment. You read and you do an assignment. Fill in the blank, write a paragraph, I don't think that model works very well because they're just doing what you're telling them to do. They're not forced to think for themselves. And once you get into middle and high school, I feel like they should be doing that. I feel like we should begin to ask harder questions. Ask them what they think, how this applies to them, and what this looks like in their country, in their state, in their province, and begin to tie it back to the student and teach them not only to think independently, but also how to learn, how to gather information. Listen, we send our kids to university. If all they know how to do is read and fill in a blank, we're failing them because as soon as they go to university, that first year is so hard for so many students because all of a sudden, they're not just expected to read and write an essay on it. They're expected to now come in and have these discussions of how this impacts them, how this impacts the world, what this means. And if they have not begun to think for themselves, if we have not helped them transition to that, we are failing our kids. And I think a lot of our model of education all around in the school system or in homeschool actually fails our kids in this capacity. So I am so passionate about not just having a read and fill in the blank. I am passionate about no busy work, everything being intentional and having purpose and meaning. In some educational sense, everything having meaning. So once we get to middle, we do a little bit in upper elementary, but once we get to middle school, we begin to say research. Go and research this, write your sources for this, and begin to find more information. Once we're into high school, they're not just researching that, they're beginning to see how that applies to them, what that means. An example, and this is in our Christmas unit, which is actually not one of our core ones, it's an add-on, but just to give you an idea of this, because I just wrote this page. One things that we do is we're learning about Mary and Joseph and their traveling and the census and their journey, and so we talk about what a census is. So younger kids, we have them actually create their own census. Go and ask people questions and see what everybody thinks. You're gathering information. Well, we have a little bit older kids. Once you get to middle school, they're beginning to ask information of a broader group. So how can you do that? Can you go and ask a group of people? Can you do it on social media and say, do you like your coffee like this or like this? Do you celebrate Christmas or do you not? And so you can begin to have them learn how to plot and chart their results and actually see what a census looks like. High school, what I do for them is I say, okay, I want you, we talk about information, how the information is gathered. It happens today for a census. Now, information is gathered in all sorts of capacities. Social media is gathering your information all the time. Everything about you, every move you make online is tracked and used by companies, by stores, by Google, by ad services to show your shopping history, and lots of people are concerned about their privacy. So now what's happened is now we're seeing more and more disclosure happen. So you'll go to a site, you'll go to a shop, and you'll see a pop-up that says, by the way, we store your information for these purposes. Now we go into research what this looks like. How do you feel about this? And why do you think it might be important to protect your information? What kind of information do you think should be protected? And they begin to think about it from a more social and cultural, and how it impacts not just them, but a greater number of people. So you start to see this progression, and yet all the kids are learning similar information about censuses, gathering information, statistics, and what those mean. That is a snapshot at Gather Round Homeschool and the philosophy of it, the main core features I think that set it apart. Now that we understand that, this foundation building idea, I want to take you through kind of what a simple day looks like with Gather Round. So I, of course, have 5 kids. I have middle school, one using middle school all the way down to pre-reader is the levels that we are using. And it takes me about 2 hours to do all of my school. Gather Round Homeschool includes geography, social studies, history, writing, reading, spelling, grammar. Every week they're doing an intentional grammar page. It includes, it's got copy work, like they're working on writing projects throughout. It includes science, it includes art, it includes Bible. So you have so many different subjects poured into this. The only thing you need to add is math. That's it. And we are considering adding that down the road. So you're going to gather your kids around you. We do Gather Round Homeschool. We do More Than Words from Master Books. And we do a read aloud. So we do a chapter or two out of a book that we're reading together. And then we finish off with math. All of those 4 things, all of my subjects for all of my kids takes us 2 hours. Now, it could take us 4 if we go down rabbit trails and we look up the stuff it says to look up and we get distracted with something, or we decide to go and cook something in one of the recipe books as we're traveling around Asia or whatever. However, that is the shortest amount of time it can take us. 2 hours, we're done all our school. So it has this capacity to work even if you don't have a lot of time, but it also can be something most families spend more like 3 to 4 hours because, like I said, there's so many ways you can go deeper into these. You can take more time on them. And my older child, my middle schooler, if he's writing or doing something, he often will take a little bit longer, but he's independent. So he works on it on his own and dives deep into these subjects. So that's kind of what it looks like overall. So every month there is a new unit released. These are Christian-based. They are $49.95 for the digital, or you can purchase print, which is $30 a student notebook, $25 for the teacher's guide. And that we do in our basement, and we have a huge industrial printer, and we bind it ourselves. My kids sometimes do it. I have some friends that come over and help me, my husband. We package it up. I write on every single thing, and we mail it out to you guys. So we have production that happens here as well. So that's the price point for it. So, and the different things that are offered. Digital, you get access to all the levels. So for that $49.95, you get pre-reader, you get every student notebook and the teacher's guide. And now you can reuse that multiple years down the road, because you could be using pre-reader now, but in a couple of years, maybe you're using early elementary. In a couple more years, maybe you're using upper elementary, and you can progress and reuse these units over and over. So every month a new unit is coming out, and so you get that fresh sense of excitement and something new, and okay, there's 20 lessons inside a unit. So you can do that either 4 days a week for 5 weeks, or you can do 5 days a week for 4 weeks. So you have flexibility as to how you want to use the program and how that's going to work for you based on your month or your weeks or what those look like. It's easy and short enough. We often do it before bed. If we've not gotten school done that day, it's like, okay, we ate dinner. Now we're going to gather around and do it before bed. And we read and we work on it. It takes us just to do that is like an hour and 20 minutes maybe. And then we're done and everyone goes to bed, and it's fantastic. So there's lots of ways that you can adjust it for your family. So what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and you're going to read from a teacher's guide, and it's about 3 pages or so. There's lots of pictures in it and lots of little stop and go look up this animal or try this for yourself or those kind of things. So to prompt you to take it a little bit more hands-on or to go deeper with it if you want, but you do not have to. So you're going to sit and read from the teacher's guide, all your kids gathered around you, and then you're going to say, go work in your student notebooks. Each of your kids has their own notebooks that, like I said, tie in science and tie in their language arts, their grammar, their spelling is done through copy work. They are working on all of their different things, their history, they've got geography pages, they're learning about the different flags if they're on a social studies one, and then you are basically done. So that's how it works. Basically, you're going to gather your kids around pages that are similar for the reading portion. Then it's going to say same page alert. You're going to gather those kids that are working on that. If you have a upper and early elementary and early reader, read the page with them together, and then they're all going to do different activities based on their levels, circling the right answer, writing or researching, right? So they all have different things. However, it's done in a very round table discussion way. So you can either do it individually with your kids. Your older ones are going to be doing it independently. And I really wanted that idea of gather together, but now also giving you the tools to learn how to do this a little bit more independently. The more units your kids do, the more independent they're going to be able to be because they're going to understand the way that this works. So it's designed where you can, like I said, print it at home or you can have somebody print it. There's lots of options for that, but that's the basic idea behind Gather Round Homeschool, how it works, who it works for, which is pretty much anybody with any ages from preschool to grade 12, and how it works for timing and what it actually looks like. In the next video in this series, I'm actually going to show you inside the books of our first 3 units, so you can see what they're laid out and compare what you would be doing in this level versus this, and start to see those connections and how it builds upon itself all together as well. So I'm super excited about it. I hope that that's going to give you the best idea of what this actually looks like in practice. And I want to make sure that you know that you can get a free sample of every single unit that we release has a free sample of a day. Now it's a huge like 50-page pack and you're like, this is a day? Yes, it is, because you're seeing a day of the teacher's guide, you're seeing the book list, so you can go and get that from the library 2 weeks earlier, and you are seeing a lesson, which is 5 pages from each individual notebook. So it is a large pack, but you can see and try out one day with your kids and see what you think. Our first unit we released, which was North American birds, you can actually get an entire week to try out with your children, so you can actually just see what it looks like in action and decide if it's a good fit for you. A couple things to keep in mind: we are making these month to month, and while there may seem a downside with that and the fact that, you know, maybe for example there might be some proofing things that might pop up here or there because we're proofing so fast and there's just so many components of this and it's a huge project, there are major benefits with that and things that no one else can offer you because you're on the ground level helping create this. We have made so many changes based on your guys' feedback already. And so that gives you an opportunity to really speak into what you want to see. People want cursive notebooks, so we are adding cursive notebooks that go along with it with the copy work so you can have your child do it in cursive rather than in manuscript. Some people wanted, their younger kids were struggling with the drawing exercises, so we made it traceable. Or doing copy work was too hard for the early readers, so we made it traceable for them. So we add in these things based on your guys' feedback. So you're going to see that if you get the full week of North American birds, please take the time. I just really encourage you, even if you flip through it, to go check out Asia and space samples. It's on gatherroundhomeschool.com. It's right on the main page. The very bottom is North American birds, and then you'll see the samples for the next 2 are a little higher. That's going to give you an idea of how we've been changing things as we go. You're going to see things are traceable. You're going to see we've gotten much more detailed in our spelling lessons where we're actually teaching them more. There's more targeted lessons based there, not just here's your spelling word. And it definitely goes more in depth and requires a bit more from your kids. The reason we did that is we wanted to add more meat to it. But it works out well because if you are starting at a year, North American birds is lighter, and so you can start with this light introduction to it and then it kind of builds on itself. And of course, you have total flexibility to adapt the teacher's guide, to summarize things, to take pages out if they're too difficult. So you as the parent have total flexibility. You can even with the digital version information, be printing off from multiple different books, add the coloring page because they want it, take out this page, add this page, right? You get to custom tailor it however it's going to work for you because you get access with the digital to every single level. So it's the ultimate program as far as being able to adapt it to your family. But those previews, those samples are completely free and they're available at gatherroundhomeschool.com. You also can go to, on Facebook, Gather Round Homeschool Community. And so far in just a few months, we have over 3,000 people that have joined that community. It's growing incredibly quickly. And those ladies are amazing. Never in my life have I been a part of a Facebook group that is so encouraging, supportive, vibrant, full of life, and active. It is incredibly active. It's not one of those groups you're going to go to and just to have it kind of be dead and you post something and no one responds. No, it is an active group. There's giveaways that happen there every single month. It is a super fun group to be a part of. Tons of chatter, lots of support, and any questions that you have about the program, those ladies are going to answer it really quickly. We do live videos there every single week. It is so much fun. It is my favorite place to be. So I'm also over there quite a lot as well. So if you've got other questions, please come and join the group. It is Gather Round Homeschool Community. And otherwise, I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing day. Please subscribe if you like my YouTube videos. I will be posting about other stuff than just Gather Round, but I wanted to make sure, I haven't done anything about it. I wanted to make sure that I did a series of videos so that you guys could kind of understand. There's so much to talk about and share. I'm recording this all in one afternoon. So anyways, it's a beast. But stay tuned for the next video in the series where I'll be showing you inside the books themselves. And I would love to hear your comments below. Talk to you guys later.